Good morning, everyone. It is such a pleasure to have you back here again today. I have to apologize. We had some technical difficulties, but we figured it all out. So we're going to have a really good conversation today. This show is a little different from what we've done in the past. In the past, we've talked to small business owners or nonprofit executive directors, but today we are going to talk to the Atlanta Regional Manager for the United States Census Bureau. I felt that it was very important we bring her on board so that she can share with you the importance of the census and what impact it has on small business. So without further ado, let me bring Marilyn Stephens. Let's see. There you are. Good morning. Thank you for agreeing to join us this morning.
My pleasure.
So let me start by asking you, who are you and what do you do?
I am an assistant regional census manager for the Atlanta region, and in census speak, Atlanta means 7 states: Alabama, Florida, Georgia, both Carolinas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Okay. So we are a 7-state region, which means that 33% of the nation's Black population is in our region.
Okay.
Which is, yes, so
40%
of, yes, absolutely, 30%. So, we're tasked with counting more than 65 million households.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
And so we have a huge job to do.
Now, can I ask you to, just for everyone, hi, Auntie Ava, my aunt is chimed in to check us out. Can you tell us how the census works from the process of collection up to and through where it goes, where that information goes?
Absolutely. Most people don't remember a census because it's only once every 10 years. Mm-hmm. And they don't realize how important a census is. Mm-hmm. Many people realize it now because we're in a pandemic and you're hearing elected officials talk about emergency preparedness, mm-hmm. and funding for different healthcare programs. And schools are ensuring that they're providing food to parents for students for an entire week. Also, the Meals on Wheels program for seniors. Mm-hmm. And then on top of all of this, people are concerned about paying rents, so affordable housing kicks in. Most people don't realize that census data is used to determine what funding a state gets, which filters down through counties, cities, and communities, mm-hmm. for community health centers, for Medicaid and Medicare, okay. for their free and reduced lunch programs, for foster care, for senior services such as Meals on Wheels, for veterans services, for the mm-hmm. with programs, for highway planning and highway construction. I mean, there are more than 140 programs. And when you talk about community development block grants, which many of your audience probably are CDBG grantees, they're concerned. Those funds are dispensed through census data. That's part of the funding formula. So okay. In fact, everyone is not counted, then your community is not getting its fair share. And just think about it. We have to live with that over a decade. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We only once a decade reset. So okay. Just think with Head Start and early Head Start programs. If parents don't include their children, even with projections, there won't be enough slots.
Right.
So they have to wait out another year until some additional funding. That's all because the numbers don't seem to support the need.
Well, this year you have been, even more any other year that I've recognized, you've been very aggressive. And I wonder, is that intentional about making sure the census is conducted in communities like the one I'm in? I live in Overtown, a historically Black community. You've been very intentional. Can you speak to some of the initiatives that you have launched, and are they working? And, was that an intentional goal and strategy?
Well, every census we use the technology of the day. Mm-hmm. And so this census, I like to call the census of options. Mm-hmm. We have more options to respond than we've ever had in census history. And this is the 24th time that the nation has counted the entire population. Mm-hmm. So you can go online, or you can call a toll-free number. As one person told me, will I talk to a human? I said, yes, We'll talk to you.
You know, these days you're not for sure.
Complete the census by phone, or you can send back a traditional paper questionnaire if you so desire. Now, we've never had options like this, so it's anytime, anywhere for a census. Now, when you talk about communities, especially communities of color, and as a person who was literally born over town,
Oh, really?
it's on my birth
Welcome
certificate.
back, Towner.
I was born over town. Place. I did not go to Jackson to be delivered. I was delivered in our small apartment, which to this day I
Oh,
can't imagine how we all stayed in that little apartment. Um, and we were okay. Um, and when I see that the numbers in that community are coming so slowly, that very few households are participating in the census,
mhm,
I know that they stand to lose a lot.
mhm. Oh,
So that's why we partner with community organizations that serve the very populations that we're trying to reach. We
okay.
partner with faith-based institutions. We partner with school districts, the elected officials.
Mhm.
We partner with everybody that will touch or will have some public contact um, with the very communities that seem to be struggling in their understanding of participating in the census.
Now, let me ask small business. Let's get cut to the chase. How does the census support small business owners and small business?
Well, even though in the decennial census, small business owners use census data
Okay.
in order to build their marketing plans and their business plans.
Okay.
They want to know what the racial, ethnic, age breakdown of the neighborhood um, to really see if there's a market for their goods and their services.
Okay.
Accurate data is really important because when they go to get loans, the first thing the bank wants to know is there a market for this? What type of market research have you done? Is
Right.
the data that you're presenting to us reliable data? And
Mhm.
census data is reliable. Many of your small business owners may have daycare centers,
Mhm.
so they need to know what is the present and future market for their centers in certain areas, and the census provides that. Many of your small business owners will be seeking grants. Some of them will be providing services to the Head Start program,
Mhm.
services to school districts,
Mhm. Absolutely.
services to other services that will benefit seniors and veterans. Many of your small business owners um, are landlords, and so they are leasing out their units for affordable housing.
Mhm.
So if in fact, and it is true that Section 8 is just one of those programs that's funded through these population statistics, that's important to them
Yeah. Okay.
because they want to ensure that all of their units are filled. They want to ensure that they are prepared for a new onslaught of people that may need their services. Many of your small business owners are in healthcare
Okay.
and they provide health services. So those things are funded um, through a formula that uses population statistics as the baseline.
So we all know the Paycheck Protection Program was a part of the CARES Act that came from the federal government that supported a lot of businesses throughout the country. Um, did Congress use the information that has come from the census in order to support the um, the approval or the vote on that particular piece of legislation? And was that also what banks have used as a way to distribute?
They may have, and just think about it. We have the numbers they will be using will be from 2010.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
So uh,
So not probably.
there are other surveys that the Census Bureau undertakes, but
Okay.
nothing as big as the census. And all the other surveys that we take, the baseline for a lot of those numbers is the census.
Okay.
There, there's a lot of things that are written in statutes in states, especially
Okay.
like Florida, that use population statistics. And
Okay.
many of the population statistics they use and the funding formulas really go back to a decennial census. So even
Okay.
if you've had growth, like Florida is a high growth state, but even with growth, many of the statutes read that they go back to whatever the last census was.
Mhm.
And let me give you another example. Most of your small business owners rely heavily on their congressional representatives to
Mhm.
navigate the process and to secure funding.
Mhm.
Most people don't realize that when Dr. King gave his speech in 1963, there were only 6 Black congressmen in Congress of the 435 and 1 Hispanic. Now there are 56 Black congressmen, 46 Hispanics.
Mhm.
That's because of the census. Those
Okay.
census used in redistricting, they make them determine.
Okay.
So that's what's really key here.
Even
Now,
on a local level?
absolutely, because
Okay.
remember, when they start to redistrict, they start at the congressional level, right? To
Mhm.
determine how many seats every state gets. That's the problem. That's the reason we take a census. How
Right.
big is that state's voice depends on the number of congressional seats it gets. Now, the census numbers showed that there should be a certain number of minority seats because of the minority population.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
concentration in various areas. So if people are not counted, you could easily lose congressional districts in a census.
Okay.
So you
Okay.
can lose your voice.
That's interesting to hear. Excellent. I don't
Yes, and
think
you can
I knew
reduce the
that.
census.
I'm learning too. So we have a question from Elaine Powell Snell. Um, I received my application 2 months ago. I filled it out with my husband, but I keep getting this application like once a week. How can I verify you received my
Right.
application?
Okay. Now, she said that they mailed it back, so they did it. They did it on paper, right?
She said I filled it out for me and my husband, but I keep getting these applications. She
Right.
didn't mail
Right.
specifically.
Right. So she may have mailed it. If you do it online, if she did it online, it's processed faster.
Mhm.
If you do it by paper, of course, it's a slower process. Remember when COVID-19, when the pandemic really struck in mid March, we had to pause some of our operations, and one of them was
Mhm.
processing the paper questionnaires. So that's probably why she's getting those reminders. But if she's already completed, don't worry about it. I
Okay.
completed mine, and then 5 days later, I got it, and I did mine online, and 5 days later, I get a reminder.
It's time for you to do your census. It's like I did it and I worked there.
Copy to the mailbox. I did.
I worked there. I know I did it. So I do have some. Actually, this is one of my concerns, I guess. As you mentioned, this is a decade-long census. We're in the middle of collection. I know I was approached earlier this year about the importance of, excuse me, of really getting this information out and getting people to vote. The pandemic hit, and in 2 months, we've seen a huge difference
Yes.
in I would only imagine the statistics in not only looking at the healthcare, the disparities in healthcare, the impact it's had on communities like mine, not only with regards to the virus itself, but employment, small businesses having to suffer, as you can see in 2 months. Many of them won't be even be in existence at this point. Are you having conversations now about having to shift or pivot the data based on what's happening today?
No, that's not the way a census works. Uh,
Okay.
Remember, a census is an actual enumeration. This is
Okay.
the thing that we do in the nation that includes everybody. In order to vote, you must be a citizen.
Okay.
Uh, you have to register. You have to show up to the polls.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be 18, and you have to vote. To be in the military, you have to be at a certain age
Mm-hmm.
level. Um, then you have to go through certain training. Everything is different. The census doesn't have any parameters. Anyone on U.S. soil on April 1st, which is the snapshot day,
Mm-hmm.
is counted in the census. It doesn't matter what age, what race, what ethnicity, what culture, whether you're a citizen or not. It doesn't matter if you're documented or undocumented. None of that matters in the census.
So,
It's,
so even though you don't think the numbers will be skewed in any way as a result of the pandemic, I mean, because
remember,
we lost a lot of people.
everybody gets an equal opportunity to self respond in a census.
Okay. Okay.
We have sent every household their census information. Some of us were what we call internet first, which means
Okay.
that we got a letter that said either go online or call a toll-free number.
Mhm.
And while we got that letter, some people were in internet choice, and we provided them with a paper questionnaire first. So
Okay.
they would go online by mail or by phone. Some
Okay.
people who live in some high rises and some rural areas, we had to hand deliver their census materials.
Okay.
So they're just getting them within the last 2 weeks because we had to suspend that operation due to COVID-19. So we
Have you
just
had to extend your deadline?
and we've extended the deadline as well. The original deadline was March 12th through July 31st. Now it's through October. But we don't want people to wait. Why? Because they have multiple priorities.
Right. Absolutely.
Other things come to mind. And this is going to follow us for 10 years. Will we have enough emergency managers? Will we have enough healthcare facilities? Will we have enough affordable housing? Will will all the people that are eligible for SNAP and WIC benefits, will there be enough funding?
But do you
With
think the Congress will look at the census from this year and make decisions that are much more skewed toward what happened with the pandemic than what the
remember, see,
natural landscape is?
the pandemic won't factor in the census.
Okay. Okay.
It won't factor in the census. The federal government allocates $675 billion
Okay.
in resources every year.
Okay.
7 trillion over a decade down to states, which get down to counties and cities and communities.
Mhm.
So every community deserves its fair share. And the only way it can be assured of that is that it's counted in a census.
That's true. So here is my question. Do you, the Census Bureau, you've been around since, as my research has determined, since 1790, which means you probably have been through a lot of things like this. You're probably my first guest who, has had, not you personally, but the company has had some history of having, something as catastrophic as this. Have you, does the census have an emergency plan and a pivot shift plan that's active and energetic, or is it kind of play, you kind of manage according to what's happening at the time?
At the time, remember, because this census is different online, by phone, or by mail.
Okay, that's true.
Most people who have done it online are just stunned that it only takes 5 minutes.
That's true. I did.
Right. I mean, I had someone to call me and said, there are 11 people in my house, and it took me less little to complete it online. And she
That's
said,
true. I did
show up the questionnaire. She said, I have 11 people in my home. And I'm thinking, after a call from a person, I had no idea who the person was, how they got my phone number. Nobody will fess up to that. And the person had trouble getting into the internet, right? Into the URL. So I said, are you keying in the right um, numbers and letters? And they said, yes. And so I said, well, give me your email. Let me just send this to you. I'll send you the link. Sent the person the link. They got their 12-digit number. I told them how to put it in. They put it in. Then they got to the part that was ask for your birth date. They put their birth date in. They said, wow, this machine is smart. It got my birthday, my age perfectly right, 92. And I'm thinking,
Me
92.
too.
A 92-year-old is on the computer completing the census.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
less than 4 minutes later, we were all done, and they said, "This is fantastic. You guys should have had this decades ago." All that stuff. I mean, he was just so. Can I do it again? I said, "No, trust me. Once is a
We got it. I'm
yeah."
present.
And they were so excited the fact that he got this a confirmation and
Uh-huh.
said he completed it. And he says, I'm going to print this out. And I told him how I put my picture on mine. He says, I'm going to do that, make some copies when things get better and buy some frames and give it to my great grandkids and my
Very
grandkids.
cool.
And they remember that I participated in the 2020 census.
Very nice. And that's good because they'll pass it down to their kids and their kids will understand the importance of doing the
Yeah,
census.
it's a historical document. And let me tell you, up until through 1950, it was not self-response. The census taker came to your home, sat down in your living room or on your front porch, and collected information. And in many ways, they determined your racial identity. It
Mhm.
was in 1960 that we started self-response, where we
Okay.
provided to you. You completed it and sent it back to us
So
because that's
you to
right now.
determine what it was.
Absolutely, absolutely. So
Mhm.
now we're self-response. And then this year on the census under race, When you check black under race, you can put country of origin. That's the first time in history. Never been able to do that before. So you can put African American, you can put Nigerian, you can put Jamaican, you can put Haitian, you can put Trinidadian, you could put Ghanaian, you could do all of that. This is the first time in history that has been done. The census, participating in the census, of course, for congressional representation is primarily the reason, which is excellent. All the other resources and the things that we look for, Title I grants, um,
Mm-hmm.
foster care, all
Mm-hmm.
of those other types of things, bilingual education, that's important. But did you know that in a disaster like the Katrina Rita disaster of '05, and if you were displaced, you could get a document from the Census Bureau that says, I'm Marilyn Stephens, this was my age. You can use that to get a passport, entitlements, and put your life back together.
Wow. So under this circumstance, I mean, of course, we have a bit of a situation, but you can always kind of go back to the census under several circumstances, which is important in Miami. We always have a lot of hurricanes
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
get all of your information just by going through the census.
Right. And I can't get your information because the census data is safe and secure.
Right.
Under Title 13 of the U.S. Code, that we can only publish things in statistical form.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And no agency can get your information under Title 13 of the U.S. Code. We can publish things that will say how many age groups we have, how many racial groups we have, that type of thing. But no law enforcement, no IRS, no CIA, no FBI,
I'm glad.
no police, no ICE, no immigration, no,
Right.
no. That's
I'm
the
glad
first
you
I
said that.
get it. There's a 5-year penalty and a $250,000 fine under Title 13 of the U.S. Code. So it's very serious.
So
Now,
just to dispel the myth, I
yes,
want to make sure we dispel the myth because that is a huge conversation in my community. This information is not being used to
it can,
capture and identify and
it
deport
can, and it cannot be used.
legal and potential legal, in some cases, potential legal.
Right.
Okay.
That's why the census doesn't matter about it doesn't matter about um, status. None of that matters. And then census data is sealed under Title 44 for 72 years. So when you listen on TV about the genealogy searches, you get census data. The last data we released was 1940 data. We released that in 2012. The next data to be released will be the 1950 data. We will release that in 2022.
Oh, okay. So even if they, it'll be 70 years from now before they even catch you anyway.
Right. On top of that, I tell people how important the census data is. We had a situation in our family. My
Mhm.
mother's youngest sister was the executive for my grandmother. My grandmother was near 100, but she could not authenticate my grandmother's actual age to give her that would have given her some more entitlements. And my mother and her oldest sister, they were the two oldest. They said my grandmother was one age, and the
Mhm.
doctor has certified her as another age. And mom said, "Well, if what you guys say is true, that would be better for her,
Uh-huh.
but it has to be authenticated." So, I mean, of course, my mother and her aunt said, "Well, it's in the Bible." But my aunt said, "Well, the house burned down and the Bible burned with it." So I stepped in as the census hero and said, "I think I can help." Because as old as grandma is, I know that she's participated in a census at some time in her lifetime.
Right.
So our age search program, because you're her guardian, you can get a document from us that will authenticate her age during a certain census. And my aunt says, "Really?" And I told her how to do it. She did it, got it back. My mother and her older sister were right, but that we were able to certify that, and my grandma
Awesome.
was able to get some those entitlements. So you never know when you may need this information. That's why status doesn't matter.
Okay. Because I mean, and that's true. Very much in our communities, we've learned. My family is very much into history and making sure we know what where our history began.
Right.
But as usual, ages have to be verified
Right.
because there wasn't always the most efficient manner,
Absolutely.
especially if you were born in a home. So,
Yeah.
so it's good that you can reach. I can speak today.
Yeah.
So have you authenticated your history?
Oh yes, I actually have a real birth certificate that has my first place address on it, being delivered by a midwife in Overtown.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. I found out on my birth certificate that the name, my middle name, I thought was not the middle name that is really on the birth certificate. So check it out, everybody. It might be a little different from what you think. Um, so you talk a lot, or exactly from the bio that I read on you, you do a lot of speeches, workshops, panel discussions to Fortune 500 companies, various organizations around the country. You've even spoken to higher learning institutions. What do you talk to them about? What do you share with them? What is the most important thing you want to make sure you share when you have those conversations?
And I share the importance of the census.
Okay.
Because in a lot of venues, people do not understand the importance of the census. Mm-hmm. And because we take a census only once every 10 years, I talk about, sometimes I talk about the evolution of race. I talk about how the census has changed over time. But what I really, when I talk to people of color, I talk about the census is a way of defining the community. It is a way of the community ensuring that it gets its fair share of resources. And the only reason we have the representation in Congress that we have is because of the census. Mm-hmm. Someone said to me in one of those forums, well, do you think that if more minorities participate in the census at a higher level, that would increase their representation in Congress? I said it could. It really could. I mean, one of the things is that the question that I tell people to ask, do our numbers support our needs?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And have you found that that's made all that you're doing in terms of really trying to market and target those communities, have you found there's been a more reception and more feedback?
I started my own family because all of us have family members that are from all walks of life. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that one of my family members said to me, I had no idea that these social services and the allocation of this funding is tied to census. He said, this is really, he said, let me tell you something. He told me, he said, let me tell you something. This is really important. This census is really important. So I can tell everybody, I have cousins that have do some questionable things, but they have completed their census.
And they still are not in jail.
Absolutely. Let me know that they have completed their census. And that they have influenced their children, their other friends. I mean, they are better spokespeople than I am about
good.
And their friends like, really? This is some serious stuff. We need to know this. And that's right. Knowledge is power. And understanding this census every 10 years. And then we've got to live with these numbers. Mm-hmm. So that's why we want people, not only we want you to participate, but we want you to contact 10 of your friends and say, hey, have you guys completed the census?
I have to, and I got to say, I learned that a little while ago as well in terms of really bringing business to communities like ours, because at the time the census only showed a third of who we think really lives in the community. Absolutely. Most organizations, most businesses didn't want to come here. And in a place that is a food desert, or at the time was a food desert, in a place where it would have been nice to have some convenience stores or some small intimate restaurants, had we really known the correct numbers, and the opportunity for revenue that these businesses could make, it would have had a huge impact. I think we've turned the curve a little bit, and we're starting to see a little bit more come into the area, but that was 10, maybe even 20 years ago now that could have turned around. So I do agree with the importance of it. And I've learned some stuff as well in terms of the census. Let me talk about, if I can, the census staff itself. Because of the pandemic, have you found that you've had to pivot in terms of your staffing? I think you've always had some grassroots support. Has there been some challenges in that realm of keeping people employed during the pandemic, or have you been able to sustain?
Well, we have a census operation is complex, so all of our public contact had to cease.
Oh, yes, that's right. That makes sense.
All the public contact had to cease. So our outreach staff, our partnership specialists, had to communicate with our partners through virtual means, such as what we're doing this morning, and other means, to hold meetings, to keep them engaged, to notify them on how their cities and their counties are progressing, and to find out those that have public contact, either through food share or through the schools distribution of lessons. So we've had to make some immediate changes. Our field staff have been assisting in other operations, a census, there are several operations that go on. So we had to just make a shift.
Right. Like everybody else.
We had to stop and look and adapt.
Okay.
And we have done that. And now we are back in the field for our update leave operation, where we were delivering those packets to those households that had yet to receive them.
Okay.
Because they're called update leave. And we're still encouraging the other households who already had their material since March 12th to go online at my2020census.gov or to call the toll-free number at 1-844-330-2020. Or if you are a traditionalist, and one millennial told me he was going to go old school, and I didn't realize this was old school.
Did you go offended like I would? But okay.
Yeah, first said that he was going to do it on paper. So he wanted to see what going to have a paper trail. So I said, okay.
I know. I understand. I get you. I understand the frustration.
The millennials are 18 and 34. 10 years ago, they were 8 and 24. So chances are someone else completed the census for them. So saying that we're doing it online, where else would it be for them? Because they're technologically savvy.
I agree.
Understanding of the importance of the census. When we say they use in the funding formula, the census data is used for Pell Grants.
Right.
And they seriously and truthfully understand. They're saying, wow, this is important to me.
Right. And I need to be counted for.
I need to be counted. I have siblings that need early Head Start and Head Start. We need to be counted. So I had my godkids that were graduating this year. I said, you take the lead in the household in completing the census for everybody.
Very nice.
So they were in charge.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you think about that population, they're a little bit fearless. Well, to be very candid, they really will put themselves out there and aren't afraid of technology and things of that nature. I believe I had a conversation once with one of your field directors about when you're talking about communities of color, sometimes you have to butt up against fear, and then just being able to access the information, as you mentioned, old school versus new school. And I found it very interesting that in my research, you actually have come up with telephone lines in different languages.
Right. And this is the first census where we actually support
in a lot of different languages. So if you could talk a little bit about, what was the origin and thoughts behind, how we've got to touch everybody in their own way?
Well, one of the things that we looked at, what are the top 12 languages spoken in the United States. And remember, we always learn from the previous census. So we always do a lesson learned. We have a major debriefing after a census and explore everything, comments from partners, things that we feel we should incorporate in the next census. And one of those things was the ability for people to be able to respond in language. Okay. So if you go online, you'll be able to respond in language. First time Haitian Creole, you can respond.
Yes, I saw that. It was amazing.
Yes, Russian, Polish, Portuguese. So this was a game changer. And then having different numbers where you could respond in language by the telephone with the native speaker. So that was really that really helped to really show the public that we have used every tool in the tool to engage the community in completing the census.
Yeah, I actually was very impressed by that for sure. We have a question from Edgar Wright, who asks, can you help seniors complete their questionnaire?
Right. Many of the seniors or maybe seek help. There are a lot of community organizations um, that are helping their seniors. But I encourage seniors because, see, under Title 13, I cannot release anything you give to me. But you can have your godchild or your son or your daughter complete your census. That is your right, your freedom of choice.
Right.
I encourage seniors to call the toll-free number at
Okay.
1-844-330-2020 and just complete it by telephone.
It is. I mean, it's much easier than trying to worry about getting into the mailbox, especially during a pandemic when we have to stay at home. So
Or even having to get someone else to help you
right. Okay.
right now because there's not a lot of public contact. So just call our toll-free number. We have we have call centers all over the country waiting. I get a report every morning about the number of calls we're getting. So that we've expanded the call centers
Good. Good.
because of the pandemic, so that more people can call and
Good.
complete online or by phone.
So how can small businesses help in this effort besides making sure they apply themselves?
Yeah, small business have public contact. Many like the restaurants are doing takeout and delivery,
Mhm.
so they can put something in their bags, in their customers' bags, or they can put a sign up and say, "Make sure you complete the census."
Mhm.
In many of the small businesses have websites, so that the customers go to their websites first. They can put a banner,
Mhm.
a census banner, and we can provide those for
Okay.
them.
There's
The
a
put a
toolkit
banner.
for that.
We
Right.
can have our partner toolkit. They can put a banner on their websites. In any form that they have public contact. We want them to be talking about the importance of participating in the census to their customers.
Okay. So I want to end by asking you, how can we get in touch with you? And not you personally, but the census, and how we can really encourage everyone to really just hop on the computer right now and
Right.
do.
Right now, I want you to go to my2020census.gov, my2020census.gov, or call the toll free number at 1-844-330-2020. Or if you have that paper questionnaire, complete it, and when you see your mail carrier, just give it back to them if you want to go old school. It's okay. But trust me, you're going to love the online response because it is so fast.
That's true. It really is.
All you need to know is who's in the house, what their birth dates are, and I trust that you know what their relationship is. We've been asking questions since 1880, and you'll be completed in no time at all.
So, and if someone wanted to help get that information out, what would you recommend they do?
I recommend that one of the things that ask your church that because they're doing virtual services, make sure they include an announcement every Sunday
Good
to
idea.
the congregation. Have you completed the census? It's important to us.
Very good idea.
I ask them to, if they have children in school, make sure that their teachers are including a census lesson because we have free lessons for teachers online. And for parents who are now going back to the basics as their children's first teachers, they can go on census.gov. We have all kinds of wonderful teaching materials online for all age groups, so they can use those. But I think the census has to be a community project.
I agree. I agree. If the community
It
doesn't
has to
get
be
behind it, it's not going to
absolutely. It has to be a
serve
community.
folks. And it's got to be about community trust too, that we trust
Right.
that this information is going to.
Right. And even with the farm shares, they are using the data to determine how many families maybe are being affected by this
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
how much they would possibly need to be able to distribute. This is important. So if families are left out, and some people say, well, people are scared. I said, are people scared to send their children to schools?
Mhm. Mhm. I mean, even youth services are using that information to adapt as well.
Absolutely.
So, for
Absolutely.
sure.
So we have to be realistic about this. In order to get the goods and the services that we all need and we depend on, there is a way that they come through, and one of those ways is through participation in a census.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to join us this morning. This was definitely informative to me. I'm learning some stuff as we talk. And I really do appreciate the information that you provided. We'll make sure we share it with our audience over and over again. And if you need any support from Talking Businesses or Talking Business or from me, Stephanie Van Bart, please feel free to reach out.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. By the way, I love the backdrop. It looks really good.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Well, thank you everyone for joining us again today. As usual, wonderful information, and I hope you will take to heart the importance of doing your census. I am firsthand aware of how the census can really skew where the funding goes and where the need goes, being in a community like Overtown. So I really impress upon you. It's very important that we do that, and I hope that you will glean that today. Tomorrow, we will be talking to Cornell Cruz, who is with the Community Reinvestment Alliance. That is the alliance and organization that is looking at ways of getting financial services into communities, also of color and of challenge. So definitely you're going to want to be here. This has been a great informational day. I'm learning a lot today, and I will tomorrow as well. Thank you so much and have a great day. We'll see you soon.